Okay, so great to see everybody that I can see and know that more are there on YouTube or anywhere else in the ether, in the universe. um, so having a virtual theosophical, almost like town hall going on here. So it's really nice. So I'm at home in um, Western Michigan, almost in Brooklyn, Michigan. But we're all in cyberspace at the same sort of locale, the virtual space that we're all in. It's great to be there with you. And I thought to settle ourselves, maybe we can just do a little breathing meditation in the beginning, just for 5 minutes. And also giving people who may still come online a bit of time. So wherever you're sitting in cyberspace, on a cloud, or on a chair, or on a cushion, you can close your eyes, sit with a straight back in a comfortable position. And just feel yourself in your body. Just follow your breath. With mouth closed and eyes closed, breathing through the nose. Follow the cycle of breath. Coming in through the nostrils, filling the lungs, and raising and lowering the abdomen, coming back out the nostrils. And then for a little while, keep your attention at your abdomen exclusively. Just follow the rhythm of the breath as it comes in and out of the abdomen, solar plexus area. That is our comfort zone. That's where our gut feeling comes from. It's just reassuring that everything's fine. We're breathing. We're alive. Okay, thank you. I don't know how loud that was. I try to have the gong a little further away. It's not right on the microphone. But thank you for doing this little centering exercise together. I think it's very good sometimes to do that, to just be really in the moment and really feel what's actually happening where we are. Because everything going on, our thoughts can spin out a little bit. And we could get sucked into watching too much news and getting a lot of overdoses of bad news. So sometimes it's good to tune out and just see that we are still breathing and we are actually where we are okay. And then with a clear mind, a little balance, inner balance, then we can do everything that we need to do much better. Are you all hearing me still? Okay. Okay, great. So yeah, so we're all sitting at home and all affected by this virus crisis everywhere. We know people that may be either tested positive or that are a little vulnerable, like being older people or having some conditions that are susceptible to experiencing this virus more severely. So we have to think of them. And also economically, we're all affected. Some can work from home, many cannot. And we're all at home in a different atmosphere, living with our folks at home. Or if we're alone, we're really alone, can't go out and meet other people. So that's our reality right now, and looks like it will be for a while. So it's good to get used to the situation as it is and make the most of it. So in some ways, we all say it's social distancing, but I don't feel that's really social distancing. I experience it more as physical distancing. You can't really go out and meet people. But we can absolutely contact people like we do now. We're communicating, talking to each other. And in some ways, I haven't talked to so many people in so long, in such a short time as in the last couple of weeks, honestly. Like last weekend, I talked to people from Australia because I used to live there. I have friends in New Zealand, so they called me. And of course, I have relatives in Germany, so we are talking more than we normally do, see how everybody is. And also across the US, friends that, you don't talk to a lot, want to talk, or I feel I want to reach out to certain people that I'm thinking of that may need help or that I'm a little concerned. Or so there's all these different Zoom meetings going on with different groups of people, individual phone calls and so forth. So it's really not social distancing. It's physical distancing. And socially we can really, and we are, very connected. So that's a good part of it. And we can really experience ourselves as social beings. If there's any chance, we'll try anything to do that, because it's nurturing for us, it's healing for us to exchange ourselves with others. And we're not ruminating as much as if we are on our own and trying to mull things over, having no feedback, and we get into our own echo chamber of thoughts. So there's a lot we can do, and luckily, thanks to technology and even with the phone, it works quite well too. And so we can be interacting with each other. And it's really, this time, interesting to see that it's really everybody who's affected. Like I said, people all over the place that I've talked to. This friend from New Zealand said they are also under, restrictions. Can't go to work, can't be out in the community. And that's a small little island, far, far away on the other side of the world from us. And likewise, almost every place on the earth. Maybe some countries in Africa haven't really heard about it yet. Maybe some local communities. Countries, yes, for sure. But maybe local communities somewhere in isolated areas have not heard enough about it. But they will in time. It's just a matter of time. The densely populated areas, they feel it first, because that's where traffic goes in and out, and international travel and so forth. So naturally that goes there first. But from there, if it's not caught very quickly, then there's community spread, and eventually everybody more or less will be at least indirectly affected by knowing somebody, or personally affected, and definitely economically affected. So in this sense, we are really all in this together. So we often say that, and it's kind of a phrase that we use, but this time we can really feel it's literally true. It's literally true. We're one global community. We're all affected by this, and we all have a stake in this. And we all have also a role to play, how bad this gets or if it can get better. And there's a lot we can do. So at the moment, just by doing nothing, we're doing something good. Staying at home, that helps, because we are not out there getting infected. We are not out there becoming the next patient that has to land in the emergency room and overcrowded hospitals. So we can, just by staying at home, we can actively help. Now, this is video from hospital nurses who are saying that, we are here for you, working for you, and you can be there for us if you stay at home. Please stay at home, they were saying. So we are participating in making it better by staying at home already. And then, we can reach out to others, comfort others, talk to others, share with others. That makes it easier. I'm sure most of you, probably every one of you, have very similar experiences of really reaching out, really wanting to know how everybody is. And that makes it easier. That's really the human connection. So we are in some ways already practicing compassion for ourselves that way, and compassion for others. And it's helping. And then also we can really feel, if communities help each other, it goes a long way. There are food banks. If we have food to share, we can bring some food to the food banks. If we have too much hand sanitizer, we can share that. Or we can, like many people are doing it, making cloth masks at home. So we can do a lot. And then as a society, the better we work together, then the better it is for everybody too. If all the states in this country coordinate what they're doing, and we have a plan of action that is national, then it's better, because it is a national situation where everyone is affected. So working together. So in this sense, it's becoming more and more necessary to think what others need. If we sometimes think, okay, there's a poor community somewhere, in a reservation somewhere, or in a poor area of the country, and it's not my business, I'm fine. Or they brought it on themselves, or they should do this or should do that, but it's nothing to do with me. So now we can't think that way, because if there's a sort of disadvantaged community, then they cannot contain the spread of the virus. They will be more forced to spread it because they can't stay at home. No one's paying them. They may not be able to get unemployment. They can't work from home. They have to go out. So then they're more in danger themselves, but because of that, they're also endangering others or spreading this virus further. So if we think that way, then by providing good living conditions for everybody, then we are also better off. And it's actually, now we see it very clearly, but in reality, it's always like that. If the whole society is healthy, and every part of society is recognized, considered, and lifted up, then the society as a whole is safer. There's less crime, there's less disease, there's better participation in the economy, so the generation of wealth and economic activity is better and evenly distributed. So it's good for everybody. So in that way, altruism is not, as we can see very clearly now, it's not an option. It's not something extra to do when we have spare time. Now it's becoming very clear. It's actually our own safety, our own benefit is tied in with everybody else. No one's exempted. So this is literally the reality at all times. And we are seeing it also with climate change. These things are all interconnected. We used to say, that saying, right? A butterfly in China flaps its wings and it can contribute somewhere down the line to produce a hurricane in the Caribbean. And people in mainland America are affected by that. We used to say that. And now we have to say, a bat sneezing in China affects every living being, every human being, indirectly than every living being on this planet. Because it started, apparently, with a bat or a bird having the bird flu, or the bat flu, or whatever. They have that condition in their own community, and then interaction with human beings followed. And then it became mutated to be human-to-human distribution. And then from there, because we're such a globalized, interconnected society, with international travel, it spread very fast. In this day and age, you can be almost at any place on Earth within one day, within 24 hours. You can catch a plane to anywhere. And then from there, take a bus, car, or whatever, and reach final destination wherever you want to be, pretty much within 24 hours. And so can viruses. They do the same thing. They go with us. So by being so interconnected, we are also more responsible for each other. We have to take care. And how is that tied in with climate change? Because there's more reaching out of our human activities into wild animals' habitat. Now, our teacher, Demo Rinpoche in Julhard, he said it in one of his most recent talks. He was saying, those wild animals didn't come to us, we came to them. So we are cutting down the trees, we're establishing more and more human activities in areas where we haven't done it before. So they lose their habitat. We are coming closer to where they used to be. And then thereby they are closer to us. And so this interaction can happen. So thereby viruses like SARS and MERS and Ebola and so forth, that used to be very, very rare and isolated and not even becoming human to human, are now more rapidly becoming so. So by noticing that, we also have to take care of our environment. It's not only about us human beings and us ruling the earth. It's about being on the earth with other living beings, sharing our planet with others. It's not owning the planet. It's sharing the planet. We are with others. We are part of this ecosystem. Can't exempt ourselves, as we see very clearly. And this is just one example now. This is one virus right now, but climate change and related natural phenomena are happening quite frequently already and more frequently in the future if we don't take care. So there again, one person can't do it. One country can't do it. It has to be pretty much almost everybody working together. So again, it's altruism as necessity. Even if we don't think, oh, it's touchy-feely, compassion, I don't need that, I'm a rugged individual, I can make it on my own. Maybe not possible. Actually, we can never make it on our own. We always need others. So even in good times, before the virus, still, if I look at my own situation, did I make this sweater myself that I'm wearing? Did I make this shirt myself? No, someone else made it. Did I make this lamp myself? Did I paint this picture myself at the back? No. Did I build this brick wall, this place that I'm in? No. Everything done by others. The sofa I'm sitting on, made by others. The glasses that I'm wearing, made by others. The computer I'm talking into, made by others. Everything comes from others. The food that I'm eating comes from others, sustaining me, keeping me alive. So already, in any angle you look, we're very, very much dependent on others. Very connected with others. And if you just look at one product that we're engaging, let's say food, you open our fridge and what's in there? Where does it come from? So it's just one location, just one subject to focus on, but there are literally millions of people involved with that. Because there's bread, cheese, butter, whatever we use, ketchup, you name it, anything in there, coming from all different sources. Not only from one country, either. As with globalized society, these things can come from anywhere. They come from California, from Florida, from Mexico, from anywhere else in Europe, Asia, international food production. If you drink wine, it comes from France or from Argentina or from Australia or from California, Spain. It could come from so many places, and we can get it. So that way, we have all those people who worked on that, just the things that are in our fridge, come from so many places. And if we're not vegetarian or vegan, then also the butter, the cheese, has to do with animal production, so they made it. It comes from them. Wool. If we're wearing anything made of wool or leather, it's animals' lives that were lost so that we have those products. So in that sense, we also should have, feeling of gratitude. I can only be here, I can only exist because of the kindness of others. And whatever I can do for their happiness is the same as if I would do it for me. In Tibetan meditation, they sometimes say, it's a little bit like, you want to benefit your hand, so your hand is okay. But that also means the rest of the body is involved with that. It's not just the hand, it's the whole arm and it's the whole body. If my finger hurts, I feel it in my head, I can tightness in my chest, I can develop a fever all over my body. And it's not just the hand, it's all one organism. And in that way, our human society is like one organism. So if one part hurts, everything hurts. So I'm not separate from those. Okay, this is just a little question here. I hear the word compassion used all the time, but could you help me narrow down what the Buddhist notion of compassion for all beings means? Yeah, so we're kind of inching towards that, getting there. You know, we already are at this place so far. We reached out to all beings on this planet. You know, we have the animals that we are connected with, the bats and everybody else, and how we are connected with them and what we owe them, and that their kindness allows us to thrive. So also then returning that favor, feeling that what they do for us, and since we are in one organism, then I also want to reach out and take care of them, because thereby I take care of me anyway. It's not really that separate. There's not a big separation. And we all have a natural feeling of wanting ourselves to be well. And in the same way, if we think it through and we see all these connections, then we have to be saying, if I want to be well, that means everybody else has to be well. Otherwise, I'm not really well. So that becomes compassion for all. And, you know, from Buddhist point of view, when we say all beings, it includes any form of life. What we can see is human beings and animals. So there may be other life forms too that we can't see. Many people experience some awareness of spirits or ghosts. In many cultures, not only Buddhism, actually every culture that is close to nature will have that. You know, spirits in springs and mountains and trees and so forth. Everything's alive and has a spirit nature. Tibetans, that's true. In India, where Buddhism comes from, that was recognized as well. We had that in our society too, but we just lost that a little bit by being, you know, very scientific and rational, and just dealing with what can be proven and what is visible and measurable. So we're kind of saying, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. That's been since the 18th, 19th century become a very predominant way of thinking in our philosophical point of view. So, but whatever, whether we can see them or not, whether they're there or not, but we can think. We don't want to exempt any living being. If they are spirits, then we are just as connected with them as we are to animals. And also from a Buddhist point of view, we believe in reincarnation, right? So when we pass away, we get reborn. And we may get reborn in another life form. And our friends and our relatives may get reborn in other life forms. We also recognize celestial beings as a possibility, as did the old Greeks and the Indians and many other cultures, Vikings, you know, with Valhalla and Thor and different Nordic deities. And so the Greeks with the Olympus deities, and the Indians with Krishna and Rama and Vishnu and all those different deities, Indra, Ganesh, and so forth. So there may be, by principle, different life forms, you know, unless we're so anthropocentric that we think we are the ones, and it's only what we can see exists. But otherwise, in what we call in Buddhism the cycle of existence, the humans are sort of in the middle. We are not the luckiest ones, but we're quite well off. But there are people who are even luckier, living beings that are even luckier. For them, everything works. They don't get sick. They live for 1,000 years without aging, and everything that what they want is happening for them. However, that is also limited. In their case, they had accumulated the good karma to have that life form in the previous life. In the current life, as gods or celestial beings, they expend that karma. They use it up, but they have no incentive to create more of it. And that is also because they don't see any suffering, because in their world, there's no visible suffering. There's kind of underlying suffering, maybe some dissatisfaction or some desire to want something else and looking for that and then getting it, but also not being satisfied with that, needing something else and then getting it. So this is movement and not being really at peace. So the underlying suffering may be there. And then maybe also the underlying suffering of knowing, I don't have control over this. This could end. And then finally finding out it does end. And the suffering of falling from very high to very low is then very profound suffering. So it exists like that, where we use up all our good fortune and then it's gone. That is not something worthwhile to aspire to. Feels good at the beginning and then it ends up terrible. And nothing is accomplished. So that's all not recommended in Buddhism, to look for these states of existence, but they're there. As human beings, we have actually a better capacity. And that is because of our ability to feel compassion. See, these long-life deities, they don't have compassion because they don't see any suffering. So they don't feel they're reaching out or looking for helping anybody. So they don't accumulate good energy. They just use up whatever store of good energy that they have. Okay, so another question here. How about the Earth itself? It seems it is getting a bit of a break right now, indeed. Less jet fuel in the atmosphere, less fracking, yet we still seem to ignore it, or we would all be paying more attention. Do we need compassion for the Earth? Yes, for every living thing. And by that, also for ourselves, because we depend on the Earth. And all the life on Earth is very much part of that. And it is like that. You know, Demo Rinpoche said the same thing. In his recent talk, he said, right now, nature's getting a break from us. Normally, we get our way with nature, do whatever we want to, and nature has to retreat and accommodate us. And now we hit a point where it's the other way around. This time, animals are not affected by this virus. They just do their thing. You know, I go for my nature walk every day here at the edge of the village, and the birds are out, and the squirrels are out, and they're not aware of any crisis. For them, it's like even better. They don't get run over by cars. They don't get shot at as much, you know. So they're having a good time, and the air is better. So from that point of view, somebody's having a little break here. So we can appreciate that for them, and maybe also then think in future. Maybe we owe it to the whole planet and the Earth itself to not overburden the Earth herself and all those creatures on Earth. That we have an obligation to be part of that and have that sense of compassion and being integrated and feeling connected, so that it doesn't become this sort of separate dichotomy. It's either, you know, it's me versus nature, and I have to conquer nature. But being in harmony with nature, it's probably a much healthier way. So maybe, you know, that's one of the good silver linings that I see with this corona crisis. Well, you can never tell where we end up, but there's hope that people will realize that on a much bigger scale, that this is a much more healthy way to be, and trying to influence others in our society, politicians, business leaders, and so forth, that they wake up to this, and that we create a future for ourselves and everybody that is more sustainable, more healthy, more fun, actually. You know, it doesn't have to be that stressful. To rush, to accumulate more, consume more, produce more, grow. Where to? Mm-hmm. So very good point of view. That's a Native American point of view. That's every nature society's point of view. I bet the native societies in the Amazon would think the same way. The Tibetans used to think that way before 1959 as a society, and many other places. But that's really true. So we can learn a lot from that. And we actually had a plan from Jewel Heart, from my spiritual community, right around now. No, well, it was planned for middle of April. We wanted to have an Earth Day event together with the U of M, because U of M has a big Earth Day activity every year, and they wanted to make a particularly big one this year, and we were cooperating with them. We wanted to do an Earth Day event and also bring the Buddhist perspective of compassion for all living beings and harmony with the environment. And then Rinpoche, again, I have to quote him. He recently said something. It's the connection of Mother Earth and the mother beings, the mother sentient beings on Earth. That is so crucial and so at the heart of our life, if it's a good life. Mm-hmm. So the notion of mother sentient beings is really related to this compassion for all. And as I was saying earlier, when we have this view or experience of reincarnation, we can be reborn as other beings, and other beings are related to us in many different ways, not just as what we are now. So if I look at my cat, for example, might have been in a previous life my sister, my brother, my father, my mother, or any other kind of relationship. I might have been a cat myself and was related in that way. So our relationships with all living beings that way over many lifetimes are very intimate. So even people that we don't recognize at all, that are strangers to us, that we've never met, but in a previous life, we might have an intimate relationship with them. Because in Buddhism, we recognize that there's actually no first beginning. We have previous lives, the life before that, the cause of that was the life before that. It's sort of this cause and effect chain if you do it backwards, and you cannot posit a first cause, because every result has a cause. So if you would say, well, where did it all begin? Where is the first incarnation of myself, whatever it might have been? Then that also needed a cause, meaning another incarnation before that, because the nature of mind is such, it is continuum, right? So the way I think now is dependent on what I used to think before. My previous moment of consciousness leads directly to my current moment of consciousness, which will lead to the next moment of consciousness. So an uninterrupted flow of consciousness, rather than a thing, like a book or something like that, that seems to be static, even though we know now from modern physics that's also not static. It's also a dynamic, atoms, molecules, protons, neurons, and all kinds of things flying around in space that are actually at the heart of even a thing like that seems to be solid and static. But there's nothing solid and static. So likewise, our mind is not solid and static. It is a continuum. And all of those things need causes. There's cause and effect chain. One thing depends on this, one thing leads to that, becomes something else, and goes on from there. And from a Buddhist point of view, it's never began. It always, into the infinite past, it's been like that. Into the infinite future, it will be like that. So in that way, every living being might have been my mother in one life or another. That's the thinking of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism. The school of Buddhism that aspires to rescue all living beings, and ourselves having a big role to play with that. If we could help, we're trying to help as much as possible. How can we help? We have to increase our capacity, our readiness. We have to grow our compassion, our wisdom. How big can we grow it? Until we become Buddhas ourselves. And we're not stopping until we reach this full potential, because then we can help best. Then we can do more for others, because we realize that others and ourselves are really the same. the same organism, the same reality that we share. And we totally relying on each other. So a Buddha will not rest, even if they attain their own enlightenment, they will not rest until every single being is also enlightened. Because until then, it's not right. And it's not finished, it's not accomplished. There's somebody suffering, and that is an extension of myself. Just like we said earlier, my finger is an extension of me, my hand is an extension of me, my foot and my leg are extensions of me. They're all part of me. So all living beings are part of me. I'm part of all living beings. So that's really true that way. So Mother Earth, Mother sentient beings. In that way, it's completely interrelated. And Buddha himself got enlightened by sitting under a tree, sitting on a bunch of hay. It's a very natural environment. Very much part of the environment. Yeah, so from a very mundane point of view, we really can see that now very clearly. And from a spiritual point of view, Buddhism and many other spiritual traditions have, including Native Americans, have said it all along. So it's good for everybody, for ourselves. We are already spiritually inclined. We are just refreshing our own knowledge and kind of getting more input and growing that knowledge and growing our readiness to be in that manner and to participate in society in that manner and sharing it with others in that manner. So this situation now brings that home. And from a spiritual point of view, even before there was a virus, there was suffering. We all die anyway. Don't have to wait for a virus. When you look at CNN or other programs where this counter is in there, how many people have died, and then how many people have died, and the number goes up, how many people are infected, number goes up. Currently, hopefully it will go down soon. But even if that's not the case, people are dying from something else. People are always dying. People get born and people are dying. There's, 6 or 7 billion people on the earth. Of these, there are many old people, and the time for them come to die is inevitable. Any day, somebody dies because the time has come. And then on top of that, there are accidents and illnesses and so forth, and violence, other reasons to die. There are many, many ways to die, many causes of death. So somebody is always dying, and we ourselves will die too. So Buddha had said that as a matter of first noble truth. That's the reason why it's the first noble truth. Look at your own situation. Look at my situation. There is suffering. So let's say there's no virus, but does it make it go away that I will die, that I will get sick, that I will get old? That's still happening. So now we're having a bit of a renaissance for a lot of people because, they have time to think about it. It's really shocking, and we can't just stay in our normal way of just entertaining ourselves from day to day and living from day to day and kind of feeling like it's going on forever that way. And with these shocking events right now, we are more confronted with our own mortality and looking for spiritual solution, because there is really no material solution. Yes, we'd like to get a vaccine very quickly, right? But even if we do get it, something else will come up. Another virus or another hurricane or this or that. And even if nothing else comes up, in the natural course of time is that we will die. So this level of suffering has always been there, it's always there. And there are other sufferings by not getting along with each other, by suffering from our own negative emotions, not trusting people, not liking people, being afraid of people, being afraid of ourselves, having depression, having all kinds of mental ups and downs that we're suffering from, besides the overt sufferings that are out there, like illness and poverty and so forth. So even if not, then we're making our own internal problems. Apparently, I recently heard that the suicide rate is higher among affluent societies or part of societies than poor countries. Because poor countries only don't have time to think about it. They just survive from day to day. They just gotta make it. And the notion of life is not worth living, and it's what should I do with myself? It's almost more prevalent. Not to say that it doesn't happen in poor societies. People also kill themselves out of desperation if they can't feed their families sometimes, and it's all too overwhelming. That happens. But generally speaking, there are a lot of people who kill themselves that are not in a situation of material despair, but who have all those, what you think would make a good life from an external point of view. So internal causes for that too. Okay, we have another question here. From Buddhist point of view, would you consider what is happening now as a turning of the wheel, a time of learning? Yeah, definitely a time of learning. This is an opportunity to really reevaluate our priorities in life and what life is for, and what we can do with this life. Absolutely. So in some ways, there could be a bit of a spiritual renaissance, and not so much materialistic day-to-day, just hedonistic lifestyles. And the turning of the wheel, yeah, in that sense, turning of the wheel means spreading the knowledge spreading the spiritual knowledge. Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma. Yes, it could be. Definitely, we can do it for ourselves if we have the opportunity. We may not be able to come to physical gatherings like this, but we can do it virtually. And also, there's all kinds of materials on YouTube, on everywhere online, that you can listen to spiritual speakers and lectures. There's online retreats now. There's so many opportunities. You can be supported to doing a home retreat. There's so many, in some ways, opportunities that we sometimes didn't have before, right at this moment. So making the best of that. Yeah. And then Sandy is saying, speaking of death, can you describe death meditation? I believe this is practiced in Buddhism. I wondered if that would invoke anxiety for some, and perhaps it may help some, but not others. That is really true. Very recently, before the coronavirus crisis had actually hit as a crisis, it was sort of known to be something happening in Wuhan and far away, and hopefully they get it under control type of thing. At that time, we had planned a bunch of lecture series with our spiritual friend Glenn Mullen, and we had chosen one topic that was called Living in the Face of Death. So it was dealing with death in our life. It is part of life. So living in the face of death, meaning we are alive now, but we know death is coming, and living with that knowledge. And is that a good thing or not a good thing? So even before the crisis, we had planned that. And then when the crisis hit, there was a bit of discussion. Oh, maybe we should change the title, or maybe we should postpone this. We were freaked out by that, it's bringing too close to home. And then we decided, no, this is the reality. Why hide it? Buddha didn't hide it. His first noble truth was suffering. He says, you got to face the reality, then you can deal with it better. By not facing it, by putting it under the rug, then you kind of know it's there, but you're not dealing with it. It's almost like having a festering wound, but not going to the doctor. You're not going to make it any better by trying to ignore it. It's just going to get worse. So by dealing with it, by noticing, okay, well, I look it up, self-diagnosis, this is not good, I better see the doctor. And the doctor then really diagnoses it and prescribes the medication, and we can get better. So likewise, that's how the Buddhist approach is working. First you self-diagnose, and with the help of any resources that you have, but it's actually not rocket science. Just look at what's really happening. So this first truth of suffering is really there, and that includes death. So then when we know that, we can deal with it, we can do something about it, and then it actually lessens the anxiety. So we found that after this course too, this living in the face of death weekend, a lot of people commented and said, strangely, I feel more relaxed now and more centered and more, I feel better in what I need to do. And I'm not alarmed. Because alarm notion is there when you don't really know what's happening. The fear of the unknown is the biggest fear. And it haunts you and you don't know what to do with it. So it's kind of never ending. But if you know what's coming and you can prepare, you don't really have that fear anymore. Right? If you're afraid, let's say you're in a village somewhere, there could be tigers. And you hear the roar in the distance sometimes and you're freaked out. But if you get together and you say, well, there's definitely a tiger in the neighborhood, so what are we going to do? You build, fortifications, you make traps in the woods, you do all kinds of things, and then you can relax because you take care of it. You can hear the tiger roar, but it's okay. And even when the tiger comes, you're prepared because you know the tiger's there. So actually, I really believe it makes it better to kind of confront the reality and live with it, and then it's better for us. We can actually be more calm in the middle of it, knowing that we've done our best and looking confidently into the situation. And with death, it's such a thing, it's going to happen anyway. So the preparation is not necessarily trying to avoid death in this situation. Yes, we try our best, by not going out and not spreading the virus and so forth, trying not to die right now and not trying to contribute to others' death and flattening the curve and so forth. Of course we should do that because our life is valuable. We should make it as long as possible. Having said that, we're still going to die eventually. So preparing for that is still a very fruitful thing, right? So it does help, and it actually lessens the anxiety, the underlying anxiety. We all have this fear of death because we know we don't live forever. Underneath, we know it, but we don't want to think about it. We want to have fun. We want to live now. But that doesn't solve the situation. It's still going to happen. It's almost like you're living in a country with limited amount of money, and you're on a visa, and the visa has a time limit, and you're living day in, day out, spending the money and not wanting to think about when the visa runs out. That is that's not very smart, right? Because what happens when the visa runs out and you have to leave the country and you have no more money? So you have to find another country to live in, and you have no money, and you don't know where you're going, what country, what's happening there, what will I do? That will be shocking. In some ways, that's how we mostly live. We're just living day in, day out, don't want to think too much about what happens in the long run. And then before you know it, the time has come, either through unforeseen, unfortunate situations or the natural course. But even then, it's always too soon. If I talk to my 91-year-old mother, she said how fast the time ran. It's not long ago I felt I was 20. I don't feel 90. I feel like 50 or 60. And what? I'm 90? It's shocking. And how much time do I have left to live now? Very little. So if we wait until it's almost at that time, then we can't do much. But now we have time. Now we have the ability. Now we have the capacity, the resources. We can do something. And most of the information is in the spiritual realm. The science can't tell us that much about what happens after death because it's not visible on their machines, on their test equipment. But we have a lot of indirect evidence that life is not ending at death, and it will continue. By the nature of consciousness, It hasn't begun anywhere, so it will not end. Because consciousness is not a material thing. And even matter doesn't actually end. It just keeps transforming into something else. You can blow up a planet, but there's a lot of energy set free, and a lot of stuff flies around the universe, and then re-aggregates in different forms and makes another planet. You know, we say that we are made of stardust. Our physical reality, our part and parcels, our atoms, our neutrons, and our molecules, and our organs, all of these is actually made from atoms that are coming from, since the Big Bang, have formed. This planet didn't just arise from nothing. It came at around the same time as the solar system. So this is not made from here. This is cooked up in a supernova. Everything that's around here on this planet, it originally comes from a supernova, exploding star, and then thrown out into the universe, re-aggregated and became planet Earth, and here we are. So the physical continuation is also like that. It comes from here, comes from there, goes billions of years. So there's a continuation. Mentally, there's a continuation in both directions then. It goes both ways. So we will probably have a future life. It's the plausibility is such that it's more likely that we have one than that we don't. And then there's anecdotal evidence of people remembering their future life. Quite a lot if you're looking for it. Little kids remembering something that they have never experienced in this life and couldn't possibly know. Finding their previous parents, going to those places where they lived, recognizing people, recognizing their previous environment, right up to what's in a certain drawer in a certain room of a certain house that they've never been in this life, knowing what's in there. These things, again, you know, it's very likely we have a future life. Because by knowing we had a past life, then it goes on that way. So thereby, it's actually good to know and be prepared. What can we do? So living in the face of death is the sanest way to live, rather than living by ignoring death. Right, and what can we do? So again, we come back to Buddha's four truths. You know, we have the truth of suffering, and then next thing is the cause. If we know the cause, we can do something. So if we diagnose the situation, we have these sufferings. Where do they come from? That's the diagnosis, right? So then we find the cause, and then we can prescribe the medication, and then we can take the medication. So these are the other truths. There is a cessation of this suffering. It can stop. There's a way out of this. And how do we do it? Taking the medication, doing the activities. So according to Buddha, there's causes that are the activated causes, you could say, and then behind that there are root causes. So for example, if I drive over a bridge and at that time the bridge collapses and I go down into the river or the valley and I die, then the direct cause, you could say, is the instability of the bridge, deterioration of the material in the bridge, or erosion at the bottom of the bridge, and things like that. But there might have been an earthquake, and there's a crack in the bridge, and finally I drive over there. Things like that. And normally we stop there and saying, oh yeah, that was the cause. But Buddhism will go a little more deeper and saying, why was I at the bridge at that time? If I had driven over the bridge before it collapsed, I wouldn't be affected by that. If I would have come to the bridge a moment later, I would have stopped and seeing, oh, I can't go any further. There's no bridge. So why is an individual at that time, you could say, in the wrong place at the wrong time? Why? Why not somebody else? And no one can give an answer unless to say it's a coincidence. But according to Buddhism, these random things are not really random. Everything has a cause. We just don't know the cause. If we investigate a little, there will be a cause that is findable. So deeper down, we have causes that we create and then become results for ourselves. That's the whole idea about karma, cause and effect. So things happen to us for a reason, which we had a part in creating. Because we are the continuation of our previous existence. We are here now. And many times in Buddhism, we will say, I thank my previous life, whoever that person was, for giving me this life, for all the benefits that I enjoy in this life. Because many of them are kind of beyond my control. To the parents that I have been born, to the ability of having an education, being born in a country that has kind of affluent society, depending where you are, more or less, but in general more than many other countries. So being fairly lucky to be born here, not somewhere else. Fairly lucky not having experienced a lot of warfare. Fairly lucky to have a democratic society where we have input and no fear of a dictatorship where your life is in danger and so forth. Fairly lucky in having resources and freedom to think for ourselves and do what we do. Being able to do things like this, you can't do that everywhere. So where does it come from? From what we did in the previous life. So likewise, what I do in this life will affect my future. So then, talking about the fear of death, if I prepare and I do things that give me a good future life, then the fear of death is a lot less because I know where I'm going. And even if I don't know exactly where I'm going, I can be confident I'm going to an existence that is as good as this one, perhaps better. So if I can be at such a place by the time I die, then I can die with relative ease. There may be pain, there may be a little bit of, nostalgia for what has been, but there's also more a way of looking forward and seeing what are the opportunities that are coming up. Okay, meanwhile, there was another question. This virus seems to be an example of worldwide karma. So true. So how have we caused this through our behavior or our politics? Yeah, karma is a little hard to pin down. We can observe the principles, and these kind of make a lot of sense in our life too. But we cannot exactly pin down events where the root cause was. Buddha said very often that karma is something that doesn't happen within one life. It happens over lifetimes. Some karmas ripen in one life. That is true, can happen. Very strong karmas, for example. Either strong, violent acts can lead to directly experiencing equivalent or even greater violence later in this life. Can happen, often happens, but not always. At the same time, people who have never committed any violent act in this life can also die of a violent incident. And that is then because in a previous lifetime, there has been violence that has not been resolved, and this energy, unresolved energy, is still alive and eventually connects with circumstances that will activate that kind of karma. So that's how that happens individually, and it happens for groups too. For example, when we had the Iraq War, our teacher Gelek Rinpoche at that time tried to tell us not to cheer for the war, not to feel, at this time, we had war with Iraq. And it seemed like Iraq was our enemy. When you have a war, there's the good guys and the bad guys, and when we are, of course, the good guys and the others are the bad guys. That's, the war thinking is like that. Otherwise, you couldn't have a war. If you have war with your buddies, you can't. You have to make them into an enemy. They have to become the bad guys. That's how war thinking works. So then Iraq, they were the bad guys. And then watching television, reading papers and reading, articles and online and whatnot, many of them were sort of cheering on our troops and how, how much we have destroyed over there, how many people got killed there of the bad guys. And so at that time, our teacher was telling us, do not rejoice in that, because that creates a negative karma. Rejoicing in the misfortune of others or looking forward to the misfortune of others, being happy about it, is a negative karma, negative mental action. It's an action of malice. And it's one of the 10 non-virtuous actions that are like the 10 commandments in Buddhism, very similar to that. So coveting others' possessions is such a negativity too, even if you don't actually steal, but it's beginning of wanting to steal, wanting someone else's stuff, not liking it that they have it and wanting it for oneself. That's a negative mental state, and it's a negative karma that can have negative repercussions for ourselves. And likewise, thoughts of malice. I wish this person would get the coronavirus because I don't like that person. Thinking that way, that becomes very negative karma. And that will ripen upon us in a similar manner. So group karma is, if many people think the same thing in those ways, that creates a group karma, experiencing all those people, let's say in this case, that cheered for the war in Iraq and how much destruction and death was caused there, and rejoicing in that and cheering for that, would have created a group negative karma that everybody who had participated in that would kind of experience the result of. That's how you get into a group situation of experiencing something together as a society, either as a smaller group or as a bigger group. And you can see by the example that I've given, that is potentially a big group. It could have been, I don't know, millions of people who had thought that way at that time, cheering for the destruction of Iraq, for the bad guys. And not that we want bad guys to be there, but cheering for their harm and how much they suffered and being happy that they died. That's another thing. Controlling evil in the world, making it not able to harm us is one thing, but being happy about the harm that causes to others, that becomes a negativity for us. So that's just one example for that. You could think of many other group karmas. If groups of people destroy animal habitats together, they're all involved in that. It becomes a group karma. Most situations of war involve group karma. So they are a result of previous karma, and then they cause further karma. That's how the cycle of existence goes on. You're experiencing a result of negativity and compelled to commit negativity again, which then again leads to experience of negativity, which then again leads to committing more negativities. So at some point we just have to get out of that cycle and be able to say, I experienced harm from someone else, but I'm not going to retaliate. I'm not going to even wish for that person to be in a bad situation. I'm going to give up that hatred, because wishing someone to suffer, and that's called hatred. And hatred is harmful for me. It may be harmful for the other person if I act on it, but if I just feel it and wish it, the other person doesn't even know about it, but I receive the harm from my own negative thinking eventually. So it's a very destructive and also useless negative emotion not to have. So in this way, Buddha pinned down our suffering being caused by actually our own negative emotions, more or less. We don't see it, because what we see is just the resultant conditions that come to fruition, and then we experience the harm ourselves, the suffering. But further down the track, in the beginning, there was some negative emotion that I, either alone or with others together, have carried out. that led to my suffering now. And Buddha said you have to be enlightened to really be able to follow that cause and effect chain all the way back to where this particular situation started. But in principle, we can verify it by our own experience. For example, if one of you learns to play the piano, then you are the one who will be able to play the piano, not me. So there's no randomness about it. If one of you learns astrophysics, then you will have the knowledge of astrophysics, not me or other people. So we know that it's true. So in the same way, everybody creates their own future. And together as a society, as a smaller group, as a family, as a bigger society, as a global society, we create karma that will then become our future. Which is why, one of the upcoming weekends with our teacher, Dhamma Rinpoche, we're calling, rather than talking about karma, which many people don't know, we say creating a better future for ourselves. But actually what it boils down to is through what we do, we create our future. It's up to us. In a limited way, we can do it already now. If we stick together, have unity among ourselves, meaning ourselves now, everybody on this planet, basically, then we can avert the worst of this crisis. We can avert the worst of climate change. And we can make a better life for ourselves in this life. By doing that, we can also create a better life for ourselves in the future. For ourselves and for others. So this unity of all beings, this mother sentient beings on Mother Earth is very, very much central to spiritual thinking. I think not only in Buddhism, pretty much everywhere. Okay, there's another question came in from Sandy. Could you describe some of the healing meditations we can find on the Jewel Hut website? Yeah, great. So there's a link Sandy shared. And there are many types of healing. Healing can take place in many ways. Very common, or what Buddhism is, especially Tibetan Buddhism, is known for, having healing meditations with meditational deities like White Tara, very commonly known in Tibetan Buddhism, because Tara is said to be the manifestation of all enlightened beings' compassion and healing energy. So for longevity, White Tara is a very special emanation or manifestation of enlightened energy, you could say. So, when you say in Star Wars, may the Force be with you, so that kind of force, they're talking about the force of the universe, the goodness that exists somewhere in the universe, the power that can be used for good. It can also be misused. But in a spiritual sense, the good power of the universe, that Jedi power, if you like, if that's used right, is manifests in form of deities. You can use it in that manner. So there can be physical manifestations. It can actually literally manifest. People can see in visions deities like White Tara. And actually that's not only in Buddhism. People have had visions of Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary. There's many, many instances for that. And many, many times has been invoked. Just thinking of pandemics, I know villages in Germany where I'm from. I've been driving around with my brother one day in the Frankfurt area, pointing out there's this little chapel high up on a hillside. And I was wondering how did that get there? So anyone's going there to pray. And my brother told me, he lives in that area, and he told me, no, that was in the 16th century. There was the plague, the Black Death, and the people in the village nearby, they prayed to Mother Mary that they if they are spared from this plague, then they'll build her a chapel. And by the fact that the chapel is there, we can guess how that ended for them. Somehow they didn't get the plague in that village. So their great faith, their combined energy of goodness and praying and connecting with that universal energy in form of Mother Mary actually worked. So in Buddhism, that is done too. And our favorite emanation is white Tara, which is so similar to Mother Mary. You know, it's white and female compassion, very heartfelt compassion, ready to reach out to everyone like a mother. That's Mother Tara, but at the same time youthful and wise, not an old lady that can't go anywhere. So white Tara is youthful, it's beautiful, but also wise and also ready to help immediately. So the readiness of a mother, the fearlessness of, I'm just going to go and do it. I'm not going to wait for anyone, not ask anyone. My child is suffering, I'm right there. So with that kind of thought, we pray to Tara and calling on her name by saying the mantra, Om Tare Tu Tare Turi Soha. So that's basically behind it. And then there are distinct visualizations that you can use to further bring that out in ourselves, to bring the Tara-ness into us. So we can receive light and healing nectar from Tara, comes from her heart. Because from her heart, the warmth of her compassion, directly comes out as light and comes to us and sort of washes all through us and over us and removes all illnesses and obstacles. And then we feel we are rejuvenated. That's basically how that works. There are many, distinctions. You can heal with the elements, healing the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the space element, the earth element, the air element separately. And you can heal them all together. Because we have those elements within ourselves, but those elements are also external. The wind blowing is the wind element, sun shining is the fire element, the oceans, the clouds, the rain, the springs is the water element, and so forth. So these elements that's nature around us, and we have them within ourselves too. We have them mostly made of liquid. The water element is very prevalent. But the bone structure and organs are the earth element within us. Digestion, heat, temperature, the fire element within us. And so we have all those elements also. And we have the space element too, because the space in between our organs and mentally in between our thought patterns. So we have all those elements. Connecting, rejuvenating, healing the external elements and bringing it together with the internal elements is another one of healing through Tara. And I don't know how scientifically you could describe that, how that works, because many people have reported that it works. So it's proven by experience of people, but you can't prove it in a scientific experiment. Maybe the only way to do that would be by maybe it boosts the immune system. It's the only way I can think of, producing some kind of heightened energy and heightened ability to withstand illnesses and so forth. And we can, see that with this virus. There seem to be some people that for some reason have mild symptoms, not only because they're younger, more predominantly because they're younger, and of course then they have a better immune system, but sometimes some old people survive quite well, but sometimes some young people inexplicably get hit really badly too, and they don't know yet why. And often it has to do with the immune system, just like even cancer has, The immune system is really strong, and that's why we now have immunotherapy to boost the immune system, because apparently there's always some kind of cancer cells that can grow in the body, but most of the time we discard them because our immune system is working. And as we get older, the immune system gets weaker, and we're more susceptible to getting cancer and things like that. And of course, the external causes also like bad water and bad air and the carcinogenic substances in the food and whatnot. But if our immune system is really strong, we can cope with things like that better. So I think that, working with healing energy in that way is an energetic process. It does something to that level of our well-being that then can cope with external threats better. Yeah, so that's one way of healing meditation. Another way of healing meditation is also just to work with our own level of anxieties in a more sort of meditational way, in classical meditation that's more well known, like we did in the beginning, just concentrated meditation on the breath. I think that also has a healing effect because we're in touch with ourselves, we are centered, so we're more in harmony with the environment, we're not spinning out in our head, going, stressing out, and so forth. So the less stress there is, then the better we can also cope with what's happening. So just de-stressing through meditation and through yoga too. And yoga is very meditative as well. So if you do yoga combined with meditation, I think that's very much a healing process. It's a part of it. And in India, where yoga came from, the yoga wasn't just the physical yoga anyway. It was always connected with spiritual practice. It was one of the elements of spiritual practice. You have hatha yoga, you have raja yoga, you have this yoga, you have many forms of yoga. And the physical activities were part of it because they make your channels and your energy system, the subtle energy body, more supple and more resilient. And then you can meditate better, and they affect each other. The body affects the mind affects the body. That's how it goes. The Romans knew that. A healthy mind and a healthy body. It works that way. So if we have a healthy mind, our body will be stronger too. If we're not totally succumbing to anxiety and panic and things like that, then we're more resilient. So even a simple breathing meditation is very helpful. And when we see ourselves, by doing this breathing meditation, we can feel our maybe obsessive or compulsive thoughts of running towards objects of anxiety and trying to go along with that. Sort of our mind automatically does it on autopilot. Then we can recall it, and that becomes a mindfulness meditation. So mindfulness meditation can also be healing by recalling our mind and changing our mental patterns a little bit. Now we have this great saying in Buddhism, but it's just common sense really, that says, worrying is really pointless. It just uses up your energy that you need for other things. Because when you worry, you're not really doing anything, you're just worrying. So the saying says, if there's something about a situation that can be done, then there's really no point worrying because you can do something and then you just go do it. So worrying gets in the way of actually doing what you can do. So the other option is, if there's nothing that can be done, then worrying is also useless because nothing can be done. What will worrying do? Again, you're just using up your mental energy and your physical energy and getting all worked up and all anxiety-ridden, but it doesn't accomplish anything. So either way, this mental state of worrying is just hurting ourselves and not accomplishing anything. So by then realizing that, understanding that, accepting that, and then watching ourselves. When we do our breathing meditation, right? We can just breathe, and then this thought comes, but I should do this, I should, what if? Maybe I should, maybe this, maybe that, what if? And then you catch yourself and think, oh, I'm doing that. I'm spinning my wheels. It's not going anywhere. It's just very exhausting and very unempowering or disempowering. And then just say to yourself, let it go. Come back to the breath. Just breathe, breathe. And enjoying the breath, the reassuring breath in our solar plexus, where our gut feeling tells us that I'm actually okay right now. And so that is also healing, because you can let go of anxiety, you can let go of worries, you can let go of stress that way. So that all these meditations can help. They're all healing meditations. And even accepting change. Maybe a little uncomfortable at first to think all things are changeable, all things are in a state of flux. But when we actually accept that, we can ride the change. We become like a surfer, rather than being afraid of the wave. sort of will ride the wave, work with the wave, be one with the wave, take advantage of the wave. So that would be very helpful for us to accept change and work with change, and then take the opportunities that come with change. That's also a healing meditation. There's so many ways. So yeah, if you can go to that website, and you'll find people doing guided meditations on many of those. They're explained there. We have live events that are happening, and we have posted clips of meditation that have been done. There are talks about what you can do and what spiritual viewpoint has to offer in times like this. So that would be something I could recommend, among many other sources that you can find on the internet. So this is a good time to do that. We can do a lot for our current life right now. We can also do a lot for our future life right now. So that's, again, is an opportunity. It's terrible times with the virus, but right now where we are, we can actually do something that we may not have been able to do that much, or not willing to do that much, or not feeling as much compelled to even a few weeks ago. Yeah, so I think we are pretty much out of time. So when you're ready to finish, say something about the time. Okay, done that. And I can do a short outro. So great, yeah. So I'll yield my time to the speaker of the house.
Well, thank you very much, Hartmut.
My pleasure.
You always have a way of explaining things that really connects with me, and so I'm very grateful that not only are you speaking so that I can hear you, but that a number of us in Zoom and then more on YouTube have the opportunity to bring the wisdom of Buddhism into this rather turbulent time in all of our lives. And so I'd like to just bring everyone's attention to the website again. It's been linked in the Zoom chat, and it's in the YouTube chat, and it's in the description. There's an enormous number of things on that site, so please just scroll through them and check them out. And otherwise, I'm thrilled that this all worked out in such short notice, and it's really great. I really appreciate what you pulled together for us.
Yeah, and you guys did a great job. You pulled this together, and thank you so much to Sandy and to you and to everybody on this call, that you've been willing to take a chance with something as new as that. And I think it worked fabulously, and I'm so grateful for all your questions that came there to stimulate my way and make it relevant and make it bring it to a point where it means something to us, and thanks to you. So we all cooperated with that, and I learned that way too, learning where people are coming from, and very, very wonderful questions and comments. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Hartmut. This was really wonderful, and I really wanted to just share one thing with everybody. On the theosophical.org website, there's a page that lists our vision, our mission, and our ethic. And I wanted to read out to you the ethic, because it is extremely relevant to today's talk and also what we're all facing right now. The Theosophical Society in America has an ethic holding that our every action, feeling, and thought affect all other beings, and that each of us is capable of and responsible for contributing to the benefit of the whole. So I wanted to share that, and again, thank you so much for your presence and your wisdom.
Thank you, and thank you all for your wisdom and your spiritual energy in making this happen, being there, doing what you're doing. It's a wonderful group.
Thank you. Take care of yourself. Hope to see you again.
No, stay healthy, everybody.
Stay home.
Yeah, stay home, stay healthy. Make it work. Make the best of it.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care.